Hey everyone, and welcome to Game Explain's official Game of the Year awards. So how this is working is each of us has our own personal picks, and we're each going to have a runner-up as well as a final Game of the Year. So we're going to go through our runner-ups first before we get to the our official personal Game of the Years. In case you missed part one of our discussion, we had individual category awards, which highlighted a bunch of games that may not be in our actual Game of the Years. In fact, what's interesting, at least for me, neither of my Game of the Years ranked in any of the individual category awards, and vice versa, of course. So yeah, which is kind of weird for me, honestly. So we'll see how this goes. So yeah, I guess let's just launch right into it, and we'll start off with you, Chris. What is your runner-up, your second favorite game of 2020?
All right, my Game of the Year runner-up is a game that I've mentioned, I think, a few times in discussions or streams, or maybe the podcast, and that is Spiritfarer, which was an indie title that was like a short hike, also part of the August showcase. And this game surprised me a lot. It really came out of nowhere for me in terms of the impact it left on me and just how much fun I had playing it. And it's the best way I think I can describe it is it's one of the most honest games I've ever played. Like, when I was playing it at one point, we had family over, or my aunt was over, and she was watching me play it, and she asked, hey, what is this game? What exactly is happening? What's the goal? And I honestly had a tough time describing it, because it's one of those games, there's a lot to it, and it's hard to really say what's so great about it. But on the surface, it's sort of a management game, so you're piloting this ship, or a boat, that you can upgrade throughout the game, and you can add various kind of tasks and mechanics that you need to keep track of, like a kitchen and a farm and houses for all of these characters that you come across that join you and live on the boat. But the story and the characters is really what makes this game stand out for me. Basically, the story is the game starts and you take the role of the Spiritfarer, who is this being that exists in this realm between Earth and the afterlife. And basically your job is to help these souls who have passed on from Earth, help them move on to the afterlife, whether that be by helping them grief or do the last thing that they never got to do on Earth. And it gets really touching and heartfelt. But it also has this very kind of, childlike animation style, which I think it just, something about it all works really well. And the game will take a lot of risks too, thematically, and even with the language. Like in real life, the characters will just say curse words out of nowhere while they're talking, even though the artistic style of the game would not at all give you the impression that would happen. Words that you definitely don't say in an E-rated game, but it's just the way people are. It's the way life is, and it's really hard to describe Spiritfarer, but it's an incredible game, and I really recommend it to anyone who just wants a really rich and powerful, impactful story.
Wow, sounds like I need to check it out. Made a
you told me I'm trying it, yeah. I've had it on my wish list for a while. I think I'm going to move it up.
Nice. Yeah. All right, Joey, what's your runner-up for Game of the Year?
My runner-up is a game that is a very soulful and emotional journey. You play as a character that exists between the Earth and the afterlife, and you're guiding these souls back to hell where they belong. It's Doom Eternal.
Oh, nice.
Nice. You had me fooled there for a second.
Yeah, Dark Souls at first.
But that game is just the definition of fun. Like, I love. Same with Doom 2016 and just Doom in general. Doom is like a game series I could just keep playing over and over again, and Eternal is definitely just one of the best ones out there. It takes what was established in Doom 2016 and then it says, hey, let's take this, let's turn this up to 11. We're not getting crazy enough. There's not enough demons. Get more demons. You got to chainsaw them now to get ammunition. It is wild. It is beyond wild. I don't even know how to describe it. It is a very fun game. I've played it on multiple platforms, and I just love playing it every time. Like, I just played it on Switch. It's still just as fun there as it is on PC, as it is on PS4. All that good stuff. The level design is also fantastic, as per usual when it comes to Doom. And it's just a hell of a good time.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Another pun. Yes, more hell puns. Can't wait till Doom, the third reboot game, comes out, because there'll be more hell puns there. It's fantastic. It's such a great time to be a Doom fan, because it feels like Doom was irrelevant for like over 12 years or or however long
So
it's been.
you're saying the majority of Chris's life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so now it's as relevant as ever, and for good reason. Eternal is a super fun game. It's a little bit on the difficult side, even if you play on a on like a lower difficulty. But even then, like, you can unlock cheat codes, and the cheat codes you can activate them, and it won't like say, "Oh, you can't save your game if you use cheat codes." No, you can do whatever you want, and it's fantastic. There's multiple filters. There's so much HUD customization. The story's a bit weird at times. It's a little bit self-indulgent, a little bit. But other than that, but you're not going to play Doom for the story. Let's be honest. You're not going to do that unless you're like, if you're a hardcore Doom fan, there is a lot to love in this story. Especially direct references to comic books, which are now considered canon, which is awesome. But yeah, if you just love shooting big things and just even shooting little things, just shooting medium-sized things, just shooting everything that moves, yeah, get Doom Eternal. It's on sale all the time, so pick it up.
For a moment there, I had to check in. We're still talking about shooting things in game, or are we talking real life at this point?
If you like doing those things in real life, seek help. But
all right, I still need to play Doom 2016. I need to get caught up here. So.
Oh, it's so good.
Fall
They're both
behind.
so good. Yeah.
All right, Tom, what's your runner-up for Game of the Year?
My runner-up is kind of a smaller title, indie game. Some of my favorite games are sometimes ones that only have very short play sessions, but that leads to just saying just one more time and having long play sessions as a result. I chose Disc Room, a game made by the people who kind of behind Minute, one half of Lambeer. It's a game where there's like a floating saw blade around, I think, one of the planets, and you go there as a scientist to kind of research what's going on. And in each room there's a disc that you have to avoid, much like Geometry Wars pacifism mode back in the day, where you don't actually attack it, you just try to live as long as possible, unlocking rooms by living for a certain amount of time, but then trying to one-up your high score. And you're like, well, how much is it? How much gameplay can there be for just dodging a disc? But they've like maxed out the possibilities. There's so much variety with all the different types of saw blades in there, or times where you're in an area in the room, time won't go up if you don't stay in like a little circle. It's so creative. It definitely a lot of fun, and just one that I think I was surprised how much fun I had.
Nice. All right. I need to check that out too then. I have a lot of games to check out apparently.
Evidently.
You're gonna be leaderboards then. I'm gonna have to one up you if you do that.
There we go. Yeah, get into a. I don't know if you've seen like Jeff Grubb on Twitter engaged in an Astrobot competition, but we should make this game our version of that. So, all right, Tris, hit us with your runner-up for Game of the Year.
All right, so my runner-up is a big JRPG that originally came out a few years ago, but had a nice big enhanced version released this year. Many of you may be thinking, there's multiples that fit that. And surprisingly, no, it's not Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, despite talking about it earlier. It's Persona 5 Royal.
Oh.
I loved the original Persona 5, but I never actually was able to fully play it myself. I was only able to watch others play it. With the release of Royal, I was actually able to play this one. So I was actually able to go through the entire game and all of its new content, like new content throughout the whole game, as well as entire new like epilogue section, which epilogue makes it sound short, not like the extra 20 hours it actually was. But I genuinely loved this game, and it was one of the best experiences I had this year as a whole. I didn't really talk about it at all during the any of the earlier categories, because while I feel like it could have fit in some of those, I wanted to give it its own special spotlight here in my runner-up. Because when I really looked back at everything I played this year, especially between this and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, it was tough to pick between the runner-up, but I think this one felt like a more special, complete package altogether.
Okay, good choice. Well, that is all of our runner-ups, so I guess let's move on to our final choices, our Game of the Year. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, I haven't got mine yet.
I was about to say, hold on.
Like,
Well, I
wait.
guess he's
I'm getting ahead of myself. No, I don't have a runner-up. I don't do runner-ups. Runner-ups are just another form of losing, right?
First or last.
All right, no, I totally forgot. I was actually what's funny, I was actually even thinking during the entire time, like, how I was gonna present this. All right, so my runner-up is a game that this has been a difficult one for me. it's a game that stood out to me for many reasons, but I was also extremely disappointed with it at the same time. But when I look back at it, I remember having some of the most intense moments with it that like really put me in the moment. And that is to say, the game is Last of Us 2. I think that's probably the most thrilling gameplay I've experienced in a game. I mean, if not even just this year, within the last few years, like some of the combat situations and the way they combined it with stealth now, I just really enjoyed. I thought they did a great job combining a relatively simplistic version of stealth that still felt convincing and worked well within this world without putting too much emphasis on it. It felt a little bit Metal Gear Solid-ish with how you can go prone in the grass and crawl around, and I loved how they aided your ability to get around. And I'm one who just loves playing in a very sneakily, stealthy type way. So I took my time with these encounters, and it really just enhanced everything for me. So I heard some people on Twitter like complain about how they were playing through the game like the way they played as like they were John Wick, and it didn't mesh with the way the cutscenes worked. I'm like, well, that's totally different how I play. Like the way I play was like super reserved. Like if I didn't have to kill everyone, I would avoid it just because I didn't want to draw their attention. And I'm like, yeah, the cutscenes kind of meshed well for me in that case. So yeah, with that said, I did have my issues with the game, whether it was in regards to pacing or even the overall story. I wasn't a huge fan of where it went. Even if what they did, they told well, I wasn't just a general fan of the story that they chose to tell. But when I look back on it, I still really enjoyed the actual gameplay. That's why it's not my game of the year. Like, I couldn't give a game that I was that disappointed by game of the year. But it still had some amazing moments, especially before I realized I was going to end up disappointed, that I haven't seen matched by any games I can think of recently in terms of like just pure visceral like action and like energy and just making me feel like I was there. Like, it felt great. So there actually might be only one game that can top that, and that might be my game of the year. But yeah, so I have to give it hats off to Last of Us 2 for just the way it made me feel during those combat encounters. All right, there we go. Now those are all our runner-ups. Now we can get to our official game of the year for each of us. So Chris, let's start off with you. What was your official game of the year for 2020?
Okay, so part of me is like still deciding it, but no, I have to just go with it. For my game of the year, I'm going with Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Right.
It's shocking to me that, like, when I think about it, in a year where we got a new Paper Mario game, a collection of 3D Mario games, a prequel to the last Zelda game, that I'm going with an Animal Crossing game for my game of the year, yet, like, there's this voice in my head that is just telling me, you gotta do it. Don't forget how important this game was to you when it came out, for those those couple months there. And it's true, this game totally took over my life for that time in the best way possible. It's a game, it's just a lot of fun. First off, I love like customization in games and kind of making things my own, and this is, I think, the Animal Crossing title that really emphasizes that the most, with being able to lay out your island however you want with the buildings and everything, place items and showcase things outside rather than just inside. But also, I think the game has a really kind of sneaky way of getting the player to of creating the habit of playing daily. Because if you might remember, like the first few days of playing Animal Crossing New Horizons, there's a limit to how much you can do, like especially on day one, before you can just chop trees and catch bugs for the rest of the night. But like, it keeps things moving slow at the start, and it sort of gets you in the habit of returning to the game daily until like by day 10, day 15, you're just doing it. And it's not even as addictive as it is just, it becomes part of your routine. Like, that's totally what happened with me. It was just, okay, time to log on for some Animal Crossing, my daily dose of New Horizons,
Yep.
And there were a lot of great games this year, but New Horizons enough's been said about the impact it had, but for me, that's definitely true. So I'm going with it.
I think that's a great choice. I mean, yeah, it's hard to separate that game from the year it released in. Like, it really did come out at the perfect time. Like, just as the pandemic was seemingly getting underway, as people were being quarantined, couldn't see each other, still happening. And especially during this early, I mean, now, like, I think some of us are kind of getting used to the feeling, but it was especially rough early on when, like, this was, like, something that none of us had really experienced before, like, not being able to see our friends or family. And it was amazing that Animal Crossing came out in a time when we could, meet up with other people online, and it would bring in people who may not normally play games into the fold. Like I mentioned, my mom, who literally has not played a single-player game in her life before, and she became obsessed with this game. So yeah, I think it's a great choice. I think it's hard for me to like the game eventually for me at least becomes a grind, and especially with some of the like dialogue trees, like as I mentioned the airport earlier, it's hard for me to separate now my annoyance with the game later on with just how great it was before that became an issue. And as I mentioned, I have my own like one of my favorite gaming moment of the year. So yeah, I mean it's a great choice. It's just like it's hard for me. Like the game tapered off in such a way that it's difficult for me to now award a game of the year because it just started annoying me so much. But it's a good choice. Yeah,
it fell off for me too. Like I was really, really, really excited for this game. Like ever since it was announced, and it didn't even have an official title yet. But then like a month, 2 months went by, and I'm just like, I feel like I've seen all there is to see, really. So, yeah, I
is it because played. You are in the sea this time?
You gotta be used to that by now.
I definitely understand how you feel on that, Joey, because I definitely also started to drop off come like early June. But I think in my case it was because my friends started to drop off and started to get busy with like leading up to other games. Xenoblade had just come out at that point, so I started getting more focused by other games. But around like late September, early October is when I jumped back into the game again, because I figured, I didn't get a chance to really play all summer, and there's a lot more stuff to do now, and I think I've been hooked again since, and I definitely think it's nice to come back to it after taking a break for a little while, especially when there were some updates in that time, because it gives you so much more to be able to experience. And I do think it's good that Animal Crossing is one of those games where whether you've been playing every single day the whole time since it came out, or you take a couple months break, then come back to it and you can jump right back into it, I think that says a lot about it. So yeah, I do think you have a good pick there, Chris, because it honestly makes a lot of sense, and there's a reason why it was nominated at the actual Game Awards for Game of the Year. So,
Tom, what do you think as the only person who didn't play Animal Crossing?
No, I can see that, and definitely for how much you played it. But I can see other people kind of getting bored of it after a while. But definitely the importance of it and to bring people together, I can see definitely knew that was going to show up as a Game of the Year choice.
Yeah, it's such a unique game that it's just difficult to compare in general because it is so different to everything else out there. And like I said, it gave me some of my favorite moments of the year. So yeah, that's a good choice. All right, Joey, what is your Game of the Year for 2020?
So I did spoil it in the last discussion. I totally forgot I did that, and I also forgot I forgot to chime in after Andre too. I don't know if we were supposed to do that for this, but yeah, it's The Last of Us Part 2. Now I should also preface this by saying I do not support development crunch in any way, shape, or form, but there's no doubt that the people who worked on this game definitely had a passion for what they were working on, and it shows in this game that I really think is a masterpiece. And Andre, like what you were saying about the gameplay, I also agree with. I feel like the gameplay in this game is just especially tight. It's definitely Naughty Dog at its finest when it comes to gameplay. And I feel like regardless of how you feel about the story, you could think like, oh, Part 2 story is better, Part 1 story is better. I don't feel like you can disagree with like saying the Part 2's gameplay is better than Part 1's. It's not only has just more things to do, more customization options. It just feels better. Like I love like some of my favorite parts of the game are getting knocked on my back and pulling out my pistol, just shooting like from there, and it makes me feel like John Wick. Yeah, some people play this game John Wick style, some people play it stealth style. I always try to go for stealth style when I can. Sometimes I get impatient and just go, okay, fine, John Wick it is, and then it's just like, you killed my dog, prepare to die. Oh, you actually do kill a dog in this game, so there's that. But
a few dogs.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, but there's just the one story element though where the dog attacks you and you stab it. It's just like, oh, that was Abby's dog. Oh, rest in peace. But the story is what really makes this game my game of the year. Like I do understand the criticisms of it. Like I was saying in the last discussion, like there are parts where the pacing just takes way too long, especially during Abby's part. Like even with the flashbacks with her and her boyfriend, that was kind of just like, okay, I get it. Can we just move on, please? And especially the part where she has to go to a hospital to help save help save the girl's life. And that part was just like, okay, was this, I want to get back to where you shot that guy in the face and like I wanted to kill you then and there. But by the time the game wrapped up, which is my favorite gaming moment of 2020, that was when I just thought, wow, this is an experience. And like at that time, I was doing a video for my old channel, Commonwealth Realm, Last of Us Part 1 versus Part 2. I said there's no way I could say Part 1 is better than Part 2. Like, when I finished Part 1 the first time, I was like, oh, that was really cool. And then I saw everyone praising it like it was the second coming of God, Jesus, whatever. But I warmed up more to that game the more I played it. I really do love Last of Us Part 1. But when Part 2 hit, I was just like, wow, that was pure art. That was pure majesty. I was amazed at what the story did, like, to me as a player. And I really felt like me being the player in that scenario, instead of, reading spoilers on the internet and knowing everything about the story then and there. You can't do that. You have to play this game in order to really get an opinion on it. Like, I'm sorry, that's just how it works. But playing it, loving it, and just sitting through that end credits, it was just like, wow, where can they go from here? I kind of hope they don't make a part 3 at this point. I really feel like this felt like an end to a story. And it was definitely an experience that's going to stick with me as a gamer for the rest of my life. Definitely.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it definitely was an experience. It felt, yeah, it definitely. I mean, it felt impactful. I remember like finishing it, even if it wasn't as positive on the overall story. I remember sitting there, I'm like, wow, like yeah, that there was a lot that happened there. So I remember just sitting. Not many games do that to me. So
it's a dark game. Like it makes Last of Us Part 1 look like Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
I'm
like
not
a Disney
kidding.
movie. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And also, like you were saying, Joey, too, like just in general, playing The Last of Us Part 2 makes The Last of Us Part 1 just seem so small.
Yes.
It's just a linear game, you just get it. It's this small little thing compared to Last of Us 2, which is non-linear and it introduces so much.
Yeah.
And in a way, that sort of does preserve what is so great about the first Last of Us. I get that side of it too. But yeah, that Last of Us 2, it just, whatever it wants and tries to do, it goes all in on it from a story perspective, from a character perspective, and I love that. It's a great pick.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's go and move on to our next game of the year then, being Tom. Tom, what was your favorite game of 2020?
Okay, well, I guess I'll say this to preface that I didn't play Last of Us Part 2 because at the time hearing like it's a depressing type game, it's like I do not need that this year.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's kind of funny. The Animal Crossing came out at the best time, and The Last of Us 2 came out at the worst time.
Yes.
Yeah, but for me, it's maybe hinted at some of my previous awards. And if you listened to it earlier this year, what I called would definitely be up for my game of the decade by 2030. My game of the year is Half-Life Alyx.
Nice.
Andre, you're shaking your head.
You did it. You took mine.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
So this Half-Life Alyx, I have a game that's kind of like, we knew it was coming, but fairly recently compared to when it's out. It's not like Cyberpunk, where it's like 7 years until it comes out. Like Valve kind of works in their games in secret, and they're working on something for VR. But I know it came a long time after the Vive, but for me, it's like as close as I'm ever gonna get to another Mario 64 like Ocarina of Time moment, being blown away by them. That's why it's up here, because it brought me those times when it's like, wow, this is the next generation. There's moments like that for me are so rare these days. Like I think ever since the Dreamcast, just really impressed overall by the story, graphics, and general presentation in VR and making it all work. I loved it a lot, and I'm going to be going back to commentary mode pretty soon, so that should be interesting. Andre,
Nice.
You want to continue maybe?
Yeah, I'll hop in here since this is also my game of the year. Even though it didn't win any of the category awards, I think as an overall experience, it probably was the strongest I played this year, because it, as Tom was saying, it kind of does for VR like what Mario 64 did for 3D. Yeah, like there have been VR experiences before, but no game I think has brought it all together as well as Half-Life Alyx, where it really shows you the potential of the medium in a way that has a big budget. It feels really refined. And yeah, it just really works. Like, take the zombies, for example, in Half-Life, which, like, normally I find them to be kind of, like, goofy looking, even in Half-Life 2. I'm like, how can you be scared of these things? Like, they're stumbling around, they look like these big, meaty idiots. But in Half-Life 2, or in Half-Life Alyx, they're terrifying. Like, I didn't want to walk, like, one of the earliest levels is in a subway, and there's, like, a bunch of zombies just outside the train, and I was, like, trying to poke my head outside of the subway car to see if I could get a glimpse of where they were to prepare myself. And they're freaky, especially like when you have the little head crab things like just launching themselves at your face. And then of course, I'm going to try to avoid too many spoilers, but there's a part in the game involving a character known as Jeff.
Yes.
And this thing is terrifying. Like, it's just you and him basically as you're trying to move around and sneak around him, and just so well done. Especially with how at a point during it, like you have to put on, or you don't have to put on, but there's things in the environment that can cause you to cough, and that alerts Jeff to where you are. But if you put on a gas mask, you find by like literally putting it on your face, that will stop it. And it's just like one of those elements that feels really good and makes a ton of sense in VR. Like you can see the mask, like, I wonder if I can put that on, and sure enough, you can. And it's just elements like that work so well. And that's not even to speak of how they realize the environments. Tom mentioned in our category awards of City 17 being his environment of the year, because yeah. I actually wanted more City 17. Like, I love being in that city, and it felt like so realistic with how they bring it to life. Even the animations are so well done with the enemies and NPCs feeling like they're actually there and talking to you. And then there's Alex as a character who feels like even more, or yeah, at least as much of a character in Half-Life 2, if not more so. And yeah, they just did a great job bringing this world to life in VR. And also shout out to the gravity gloves, which are amazing. They're just so fun to like pull things, whip them to you, or bring things to your hand. It's a perfect fit for VR while also like tying into how Half-Life has already worked with the gravity gun. So yeah, strong experience. I highly recommend it. The biggest problem is if you need a VR platform to play it. So that's the biggest issue right now. But if you can, you should check it out.
It's cool that we got a Half-Life game this year.
Yeah.
And it's like, but also it's kind of a shame because not a lot of people are talking about it because it's a VR exclusive. But I know from what I'm hearing from you guys, it's like a VR is what makes this game really special. It being a VR game. Like, do you think it could ever be just a standard PC game, or does it really have to just be VR for it to be special? Because it being Half-Life is already special enough to me.
That's true.
I mean, I'm sure it would work I'm sure it would functionally work as a game. If I think someone was trying to port it, even like someone was trying to mod it, but you would be missing the essence of the game if you played it that way. So I think this is a game that was very clearly designed from the ground up with VR in mind, and that's the way you should play it. I mean, whether it's small moments like being able to take a marker and draw on a window with it, to big moments like having a strider roll over you, stride right over you in the city, or you're in a dark hotel as you can hear the skittering of all these like head crabs around you.
Oh, the head crabs.
They're so disturbing. Or how you can like open car doors and use them as cover in a firefight against some of the heavy enemies in the game. There's just so many cool moments like that would just lose their essence, and probably wouldn't even work that well outside of VR. Like, I can't imagine a situation where you're able to like open the car door, like break the glass of the car window, shoot through the glass of the car window as you're like taking cover,
or pull the door out as cover too, like stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to put out real quick, I was considering it as my game moment of the year at a time with Jeff when, let's say, you trap a very dangerous creature in a room, and I'm like, I am so smart, SMRT, because all of a sudden, like the Homer SMRTs, because then you see, well, turns out I have to go into that room later, and it's like, oh no. That was.
Oh yeah. No, the way they bring you especially in that situation, like so close to this terrifying enemy is exhilarating and like pants pooping frightening. Like it is terrifying. Like being like inches away from someone that feels like they have the presence of a character in real life. So yeah, I gotta give them credit for like doing a really good job just realizing everything in this game. And I was gonna call out one other moment. I forget what it is now, but I could call it numerous moments. Just a lot of cool stuff in this game. Oh, I remember. Even like small little things like being able to like there's so you have they do a really good job with the inventory in this game where you have like a backpack for like your ammo and I think health stuff. Yeah, you can like inject yourself, which is cool. Like they actually pop into you. But also, if your inventory is full, I grabbed a box at one point. I started shoving things into this box. I was like carrying this box around with me everywhere. If there's a zombie, I put the box down, shoot the zombie, pick the box back up, and carry it with me somewhere else. This is really funny. Like that's something you can only do really in VR. You know, that's something that felt like it worked in VR, and something that I don't think was even intended to be a mechanic. Maybe it was, but you can make it a mechanic, and it felt like something you invented, and that's really cool. It felt a little bit Breath of the Wildish in that sense.
It definitely sounds like one of the defining VR experiences that anyone getting VR should try out. And given my fiance and I are trying to save up for a VR headset in the near future, that might be something to check out then. Yeah,
definitely should. It should be on the top of your list. So there you can make it happen. All right, so I guess that leaves us with just you, Tris, as your final game of the your overall game of the year. What is it?
Yep. So mine might be a little bit obvious. It's Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity.
All right.
I did not expect to have this be my game of the year. Even when it was announced and when it released, I thought this would definitely be up there, but I thought for sure it would be something I played earlier this year. But this game did such a great job, as Chris had mentioned in the previous discussion, it did such a great job really fleshing out this world, this iteration of Hyrule, and all of the characters in it. And in this case, making it feel really lived in, and like it's actually under threat. And I know that was a big issue with Breath of the Wild. While it feels lived in, nobody really felt concerned by the pressing threat. Maybe they got used to it after 100 years, I don't know. But in this case, you're seeing everything unfold as it happens. And one of the whole mechanics in the map of the game is basically getting Hyrule ready for this. You do all these little side quests to unify the people so they are ready to take on this calamity, so that everyone as a community across this entire land is ready to face this threat and help each other. That's why shops open up, that's why areas level up and they give you a ton of equipment. That's why you get the different armies fighting with you. The Rito, the Gorons, the Zora, the Gerudo. And I think it definitely, it tells a story that in my opinion, and I've seen from so many people, and I went into it in my review as well, so many people think this is one of the best Zelda stories we've ever had. And I definitely think it's up there, which I did not expect from a spin-off that, you know, messes with the canon, as people say, and messes with timelines and whatnot. But that's not new for Zelda. But I genuinely think that if, for people that, you know, really aren't into the Warriors kind of gameplay, I understand that being like a main issue that people have with it. But I do think, even though I love that gameplay, even beyond that, this world of Hyrule that's built here, this storytelling and the way the characters are treated, this is one of the strongest Zelda experiences we've ever had. And as Legend of Zelda is my favorite video game series, I guess I really shouldn't be as surprised as I am that I loved this game as much as I did.
You play it too, right, Joey?
Yeah, I haven't beaten the story yet though, so I'm really trying to do that soon. But you know, it's hard with side quests that you just want to play.
There's a lot.
Over and over. So many. Oh gosh.
Chris, I believe you finished it, right?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much everything that you said. So I'm not as the reason it didn't. Probably the main reason it didn't make it as my runner-up or my game of the year is because I'm not too big into the Warrior style gameplay,
right,
to be honest. But the story and the characters kept me going through. But yeah, it's interesting how they take the memories and the story of Breath of the Wild, or the story before Breath of the Wild that's in Breath of the Wild, and they build it out and they flesh it out in a lot of ways. But there's also cases where they use narration to tell you what's happening, because they'd essentially just be replaying the memory from Breath of the Wild, so they don't need to. They're like, you've already seen that, we'll just tell you real quick through narration, here's what happened after it. And it's really cool how they're able to do that. Yeah, no, that's a great pick, for sure. Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting idea for a game, you know, like taking the history of another game that's done really well, and it's basically a soft reboot for the series, it seems, and kind of fleshing out, or at least exploring something that happened during, you know, a previous time. And that's cool. Like, it's a neat idea, and it's cool that they combined it with a style of gameplay that seemed to fit for the idea of the game, which is to show like the scale of this, you know, of these battles and wars.
Right.
But to Chris's point, I'm not a huge fan of Warrior style gameplay either, which I can see why like a fan would like love this, like because it takes that style of gameplay, incorporates Breath of the Wild elements while adding on, as you were saying, what might be the best from what we've seen, the best Zelda story. It's just a bit unfortunate for someone like me who doesn't like Warriors style gameplay. It's like, the story seems cool, but I can't put up with this. But no, it's awesome that you that's your game of the year, Tris. So yeah. Any other thoughts on Age of Calamity? All right.
Not really. I mean,
Well.
it would have been my game of the year, maybe. But like I said, I still haven't beaten it. Actually, no, Last of Us was still going to take game of the year, regardless.
It might have been runner-up for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I was dead set on Last of Us and Doom Eternal like before
That's
the year
fair.
even started. I didn't even know Hyrule Warriors was a thing until both of those games came out. But yeah, I am liking it so far. I'm not loving it. It's like
Understandable.
I kind of wish it had 60 FPS mode, but it does not, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe on the Switch Pro, but it's still really fun. It is an addicting game too, because there's so many side quests. There's it's just fun in general, just slashing a bunch of people relentlessly. And I love it how when you're attacking,
First Joey's shooting people, and now he's slashing people.
yeah, it's my favorite thing to do, man.
Should've
Not
done
until
more-
you try it.
Should've
But
done a better background check on you.
But but I love how like and during the segments where you're supposed to like attack champions because they don't know you're on the good side yet, and you're just slaughtering their allies, and then you guys become allies. It's just
Rito
like,
and everything.
yes,
Yeah, I thought exactly the thing. I was just wiping out the entire like Rito fleet.
Yeah.
yes. It's like you killed hundreds of my men, but you are forgiven.
Yeah. I mean, Zelda stories, like, I think it kind of works because Zelda stories usually don't feel like they're taking themselves like all that seriously at times, so it kind of works. I think, but. Yeah, we had a very eclectic mix, it seems, besides me and Tom, who shared the game of the year. But otherwise, even our runner-ups, I think, were pretty diverse. So
Yeah.
fun to see. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our game of the year, everyone. So congratulations on your choices. I think you guys all made great picks, and yeah, it's kind of fun to hear what we all had to pick, what we all had to choose, especially in a year that's been pretty weird and difficult at points. So
It was great for games, though. It was like
Yeah, it
one
was
of the best
great for
gaming
It
years.
really was great for games. Like, looking back on it, I made a tweet about this earlier. Some of my favorite games basically had better versions come out this year. Persona 5 Royal, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, a new Zelda game, a new Paper Mario game.
Mario Sunshine.
Mario Sunshine,
Yep.
re-releasing my
Yep.
favorite 3D Mario titles, and then Mario Kart had something. It had Mario Kart Live, and then technically also continued support for Tour. Take that as you will, but like for people that are into the same kind of things as me, that's a lot. And then when you add that on top of everything else, Animal Crossing, and we had Pikmin, and then even outside Nintendo, there was a lot this year, and it's weird because when you look at how the rest of this year was, majority of people look at it as, oh, this year was bad, but I would argue this year was actually really strong for games, surprisingly so.
Yeah, seemed like it did, in spite of the year's best efforts. It still turned out to be a very strong year, especially in some cases with games seeming to be really at the right place at the right time, in a time when we needed them most. So, yeah. Thank you, at least thanks to the game industry for a good 2020, unlike the rest of 2020.
The one good thing to come out of it.
Yeah.
That and the three of us getting hired here.
There we go. And actually, on that note, we will have a full 2020 year in review discussion coming up soon, probably a couple discussions. Stay tuned for that, and then, of course, we'll have our predictions for 2021, which should always be a lot of fun, coming up, I think, in the new year. But with that, thank you for watching. Make sure to click the subscribe button and ring that bell if you haven't already. Stay up to date on all of those discussions. Everything else we'll be posting in the coming weeks and years, of course. And with that, we'll catch you. We'll catch you later. Have a good one, everyone. Bye. Oh, and let us know what your game of the year was in the comments below. All right. Bye.